Most people think they're bad at conversations, but the truth is way worse than that. They've never actually learned how to see people, and because of that, every conversation feels like a performance, a test, a battle against silence. You start thinking, what do I say next? How do I sound interesting? And what if this gets awkward? But here's the strange part. The people who never run out of things to say are usually not the funniest, nor the loudest, or the most confident. They just understand one thing that most people completely miss. And once you see it, conversations stop feeling like work forever. But to understand this, we have to go back 1,000 years ago, to ancient Greece, because one man discovered something about human nature that gave him an unfair advantage in every room he walked into, and almost nobody talks about it anymore. Picture Athens, massive marble pillars, crowded marketplaces, politicians arguing in public squares, warriors returning home from battle, philosophers surrounded by students asking questions all day long. In a city filled with intelligent men, one man stood above almost all of them. Not because he was the strongest, not because he was the most handsome, and not because he spoke the most, but because people became obsessed with talking to him. That man was Socrates. And here's what's crazy. Socrates claimed he knew nothing. Think about that. The man, considered one of the greatest conversational minds in human history, walked around like he had nothing to prove. Meanwhile, today, people enter conversations trying desperately to appear smart, funny, impressive, confident, mysterious, and ironically, that's exactly why conversations die. Because the moment you become focused on yourself, you stop being present. That's the first truth most people need to hear. People who constantly run out of things to say are usually trapped in their own head. Not because they're boring, but because they're self-conscious. You can literally watch this happen in real time. A guy walks up to a girl he finds attractive. Immediately his brain starts panicking. Don't say something weird, keep the conversation going. Say something interesting. Don't make this awkward. And now he's no longer listening, he's performing. That's why connection feels exhausting, because you're trying to manufacture connection instead of discovering it. And the scary part? Most people never realize this. They spend years trying to memorize conversation tricks, pickup lines, charisma hacks, scripts, but none of it fixes the real problem, because conversations are not built through perfect words. They're built through attention. One of the harshest realizations I ever had was this. Most people don't actually listen to understand. They listen just enough to respond. That's why conversations today feel hollow. Everyone is waiting for their turn to talk. Nobody is actually curious anymore, and curiosity is the secret. Not confidence, not wit, not extroversion. Curiosity. Socrates understood this better than almost anyone. Instead of trying to dominate conversations, he asked questions to make people reveal themselves. And people loved him for it. Because deep down, human beings want to be seen a lot more than they want to feel impressed. And that changes everything. Because now the goal of the conversation, it shifts completely. Instead of asking, how do I keep talking? You start asking, how do I understand this person better? And suddenly, from that shift alone, your brain stops freezing. Because now the conversation isn't about inventing things to say. It's about exploring. Think about the last time you had an amazing conversation. I guarantee you, it didn't feel forced. Time passed. Ideas, it bounced naturally. One topic, it led to another. Why? Because both people became genuinely engaged. And that is what flow feels like, socially. Most people kill that flow instantly by asking dead questions. What do you do? Where are you from? How was your day? These questions aren't terrible, but they rarely create an emotion. An emotion is what creates memorable conversations. Here is a better way to think about this. Every person is carrying hidden worlds inside of them. Stories, insecurities, obsessions, dreams, regrets, and childhood memories. But shallow questions keep those worlds locked away, and the best conversationalists know how to unlock that within the other person. For example, instead of asking, what do you do? You could ask, what is something you could talk about for hours without getting bored? Immediately, the energy changes. Or instead of asking, how was your weekend? You ask, what was the highlight of your week? Now the person starts reliving emotion instead of just reporting information. That's the difference. And no, this is not manipulation. This is connection. But there's another layer that most people completely overlook. Silence. Most people are terrified of silence. The moment a pause appears, panic enters the room. And because they panic, they start filling that space with meaningless words. But powerful people, they don't fear silence, they use it. In ancient Greece, silence was often associated with great discipline and control. A man who remained calm in silence was seen as mentally strong. Today, most people treat silence like it's an emergency. But silence is not your enemy. In fact, silence is usually where the best conversations begin. Because when you stop forcing words, real thoughts can finally appear. Here is a shocking truth. A lot of people talk too much because they're scared people won't value them otherwise. That hits hard, but it's true. Some people over-explain everything. Some constantly joke. Some never stop talking. Not because they're confident, but because silence makes them feel invincible. And once you understand this, you start seeing conversations differently. You realize charisma isn't about dominating space. It's about being comfortable inside it. I remember reading about how philosophers in ancient Greece would walk around for hours discussing ideas. Not rapid-fire entertainment, not dopamine conversations, not constant stimulation, just slow, thoughtful exploration. And honestly, that's something modern society has almost completely destroyed. People today consume so much fast content, they have totally forgotten how to sit inside a real moment. That's why so many conversations feel robotic. Nobody slows down enough to actually think. And ironically, the people that slow down are the ones that become magnetic. So how do you actually stop running out of things to say? Well, here's the mindset shift that changes everything. Stop trying to be interesting and become interested instead. That single shift rewires conversations completely. Because when you're deeply curious, your brain naturally generates questions, observations, connections, and ideas. You stop searching for the perfect lines and instead you start discovering people. Here's something else nobody tells you. You don't need to carry the entire conversation. This is one of the biggest mistakes socially anxious people make. They believe every silence is their responsibility to fix. And let me tell you, it's not. Conversations are shared energy, not performances. And honestly, when you stop trying so hard, people will naturally start leaning towards you more. Because calm energy is rare, especially today. Another powerful thing Socrates understood was this. People reveal who they are through contradictions. Listen carefully when people speak, not just their words, but to what emotionally charged them. What makes their eyes light up? What makes them defensive? And what makes them passionate? That's where real conversations live. Not in rehearsed small talk, but in emotional truth. And here's the third harsh realization. A lot of people say they want deeper conversations, but they're terrified of vulnerability. They hide from irony, memes, surface level jokes, constant distractions, because genuine honestly feels dangerous. But if you want unforgettable conversations, sometimes all it takes is one honest observation. One real question, one moment of courage, and suddenly the conversation becomes something meaningful. You know what's funny? The people who never run out of things to say are usually not thinking about themselves at all. They are completely absorbed in the moment, absorbed in the person. That's the secret. And once you understand this, social confidence stops being this mysterious superpower only certain people are born with. It becomes a skill, a mindset, a way of seeing people. So the next time you're in a conversation, stop searching your brain for the perfect thing to say. Instead, observe, listen, get curious, notice details. Let the listener breathe sometimes. And remember, you're not there to impress people, you're there to connect with them. Because the people who change your life rarely do it with perfect words. They do it by making you feel understood. And maybe that's the biggest lie modern society ever told us, that communication is about talking, when in reality, the highest level of communication has always been about understanding. Even back in ancient Greece, the wisest men knew this. And thousands of years later, most people still haven't figured it out. So the next time silence enters the room, don't panic. That silence might be the exact moment a real conversation is about to begin. And if you can learn to stay calm there, you'll have an advantage most people never develop in their entire lives.